Hey guys, welcome back to Kiwi Classics and Customs. Well, as you can see, we're back on Project Swiss Cheese and getting ready to do this quarter panel. Now, I'm on my own today. Steve-O's sick as a dog actually, but yeah, so forgive the camera angles, and but we're doing some stuff on here, like everything's welded in, finish welded as far as the rocker and the fender goes, the wheelhouses. Now, peeling the rest of the quarter off, we kind of found a couple of things that I felt were interesting. So what we got, let me just move this light, try and help the situation a little. Down in here, now you can see there's this piece of metalwork here which is part of the surround for this side vent that the Mustang fastbacks have. This from the factory has been welded on in the wrong place. This little edge here should be right up here, lined up with this line, and this is way too low here, and it was full with a ton of seam sealer. It's just been kind of welded in, you know, instead of like nice and straight, it's kind of welded in on an angle like that, and it's made this point here very low, and they've kind of bent it and tweaked it up. Back at the factory, this is definitely factory installed here, but it's just slipped or moved or done something when they were welding in it, but that's in the wrong place. It's created a pocket here for water, and water's been holding up in here. You can see we got rust holes going on here. So yeah, old Project Swiss Cheese is living up to her name. So this is going to have to come off, and I think I'll probably end up destroying it getting it off, because it's pretty flimsy. But yeah, the outer skin goes on and welds around here. So that's got to be straight. It's got to be fixed, and we'll get that straightened up, and then the quarter will go on properly, and it's not going to have this puddling of water in the low spots that shouldn't be there. Now, the other thing that I wanted to show you guys is all these cars are spot welded together, and we tend to put a lot of blind faith in the spot welds. And something I've noticed on now I don't know whether these cars came down the line with a different guy spot welding on each side. The other side was good. This side along the rockers, a lot of the spot welds had missed, and now that makes it kind of like it makes it easy to get the old stuff off when the spot welds haven't penetrated and are not stuck. But now let me show you this, something to think about. You can see here there was a successful spot weld, so was there. Then we have a gap of about, what's that, 4 or 5 inches, where it just fell off. We got a few more here, and then we got a nice big run right up to here. That's probably about 1 foot of the C-pillar of the car. Now this is a strong structural piece, or it's meant to be, but no welds here. You can see where I've drilled the welds out here. There was nothing to drill out here. I started drilling here and then quickly realized it wasn't attached. I had to drill a spot weld out up here. There was very little going on up here as far as welds. So I was like, okay, cool, easy. That came off a little bit easy. There was like, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, probably get 10 or so welds that I didn't have to drill out and pick off. On the downside is there's 2 layers here and here, plus the outer, so it's actually a triple layer here, which is part of the reason where it gets its strength from. Let me just get rid of that light now. We've stopped looking at that. So one of the problems, and let me try and show you this. The side effect is this. I don't know whether you can see it, but this is not welded together here. I don't know whether you can see it moving or not, but there's just a load of flex here, and it's just not welded. There's a little bit of penetration on that spot where I started to do a weld. Here it's not welded together, here it's not welded together. So this is kind of fairly compromised, and as I say, there's a little bit of a pattern because there was a certain amount of that down on the rocker. What am I going to have to do? Obviously I've got to get all this cleaned up. We've got to fix this little piece here, but I'm going to have to go through and drill some holes without going all the way through, drill through that the second layer but not the third, and do a bunch of plug welds in here, grind them off smooth so that we can then plug weld the outer skin to the surface. It'd be easy to kind of just look away and not notice it and just weld it to there, but that's not going to give us the strength that's meant to have. So yeah, just when you think you're about ready to put the quarter on, you're not. So yeah, I'm going to get this stuff done and I will come back and show you what I did, but right now I got to get to it. Back in a moment. Okay, so before, and pay attention to this little edge here and where this is, and after. Yeah, it's sitting up a lot higher now. It's kind of lining up here with that slot like it's meant to. It's a lot closer to this edge up here, and it's new. So yeah, it kind of destroyed it getting the old one off. So there you go, a little bit of hammering, a little bending, tweaking, and now I think it's actually ready for the first hang of the quarter. Right, back in a second. Hey guys, well, I'm back. What you don't know is that about 2 weeks almost has passed. That flu that Steve had found its way to me and has been kicking my ass for about the last 10, 11 days. And I'm finally kind of back at work and feeling human again, kind of. And yeah, so it's like, we've lost a lot of time, but no rest for the wicked. You're going to got to keep at it. So I've got this quarter just dropped in place, and for a first throw it on, it's actually not fitting too bad. But well, not really any buts. I just wanted to show you that piece that I made that's going to go in here. So that's going to kind of fit in there. It'll be underneath the quarter panel, but that's about the location it's going to be. So, but that can just get popped up from underneath and then welded in once we get the quarter in, in its kind of final stage. In the meantime, obviously the quarter's hanging out a long way here, and the reason is it's sitting on the replacement inner fender or inner wheelhouse. Now you can see this wheelhouse is sitting down about 1/2 inch, quite a bit. Some of that is exaggerated by the way that the fender is being pulled out, and you could probably, to get that to fit, that would need to come up probably 1/4 inch. It's actually, there's about a 1/2 inch overlap there right now, but at probably 1/4 inch you kind of got to get the bottom edge under and then hook it over onto the top. It's a bit of a finagling kind of deal, but yeah, but I have a different plan, and I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. What I've done is I've scribed around here. You probably can't see it, but I have just scribed the line here. That tells me the mismatch to some degree of the reproduction wheelhouse and the reproduction fender. It's very common for these to not line up real well. Back here, if you kind of push in a bit, we've actually got quite not enough. This needs to come forward slightly, and the same at the front needs to come back a bit. It's like the whole outer wheelhouse is kind of a little flat and a little long, but I have a plan. We're gonna, this car needs to have rolled fenders so we can get as much room as possible. So instead of getting all this double horizontal lip, you've got a lip here going horizontally on the wheelhouse, and you've got a lip on the edge of the quarter going horizontally, and typically they overlap each other. You weld them and then you roll them up. Makes for a lot of metal. You end up with 4 layers of metal there, which 4 layers of metal is hard to work. So I completely cut the lip off this inner fender, then we roll the outer fender up and over it, more like a door skin, and I'm going to try and explain that visually a little better as we move on with the process. So yeah, scribe that line. That gives me a starting point. So I'm going to whip the fender off now and start cutting. Back in a second. Right, we just got one clamp holding it on very temporarily. So let's just get this off of here. Just pop this off screen, off camera. Alright, so yeah, so I'm going to cut on this scribed line. Not sure whether you can see it, but it's kind of right here on my tip of my thumb there, coming over about 1/2 inch. So we'll get that cut off. This edge here where it's actually a little short, this lip I'm going to bend out flat and get it kind of this angle, and then reinstall the fender and then re-scribe it, and you know, it's a trim a little fit, trim a little fit. One of the other things we've got to do is to make more room is these factory wheelhouses have got quite an angle on them here, quite a cutback, and then they've got this ridge here. What I did on the other side, I'm going to do here too, is basically shape this out here, and you know, which is a lot of hammering and banging, and get this more rounded here, crest, kind of a larger hump here, to make room for the corner of the tyre, the top corner of the tyre, as it wants to come up in here. So we're going to beat that out before we do much more of anything, is get that into the shape that I want it, just to, because we're going after every 1/2 inch we can get, so we can definitely get, you know, probably 3/4 of an inch more room here for the tyre to go up in there, and we'll keep moving. So let me grab my hammer. We'll put this thing on kind of the high-speed camera, and we'll go from there. Yeah, whew. That is going to make you puff a little bit. It makes me puff a little bit. Right, now here we've got quite a nice round radius instead of like a cut in and a cut in. So now even in real time, that didn't take that long, and it's well worth doing while you've got the chance. So right, going to cut the scribe line out here, fold some of these other edges around to where I want them, throw the fender back on. Don't go away. Okay, so got to trim this bit off here, got to fold this lip here out. We've got a very high-tech tool for folding this little lip out. So just kind of work your way around. So all this lip that you normally use to weld the outer wheelhouse, and the quarter together is going away. So I'm just getting it out there enough to be able to start hammering on it. This is just for initial trim, so we're not trying to get all pretty and fancy, just get it more or less where it's going to be. And I've just folded this edge here just because it makes it easier to cut. but you'll see with the tin stuff, which you'll see in a second. Hopefully my head's not blocking your view too much, I'm not too sure. Right, so yeah, that's just a quick kind of shape up. Now you can see the line I scribed, so I'm going to get a little closer there. And obviously we ran out of scribe about here, so I'm just going to cut an imaginary line there of where I figure it's going to be. So you do need to sneak up on that a little bit. I mean, I've done this before a couple of times, so I can be a little more confident, but I would suggest a little bit of discretion when you're doing this, if you're doing it for the first time, because you will be, it's easier to trim it a couple of extra times than cut it too much and start welding shit back on. Because it doesn't matter how good a welder you are, that takes time. So, right, that's kind of where I think it's going to go. Let's see. Alright, go. This little window here definitely makes it more challenging to get the quarter on compared to a regular quarter panel. But, you know, that's just how it is. That's where we're hanging up. Okay. And it doesn't want to go, it's because it's hanging up somewhere that you're not seeing. There we go. Popped in. Allows that to pop in. Chill out. That to pop in. And alright. So let me grab this camera, try and show you what's going on here. Now, if you look up in here, you can see, can you? Hopefully you can. I've got an overlap. This is your inner fender here, the wheelhouse. You can see my scribe line, which I didn't trim all the way up to. And you know, we've got a wee ways to go, but I need to grab a scribe and I might grab a light and just try and make this a bit better for you guys. So hang on. Yeah, hopefully that's, see if we're looking in the right place here. You kind of see we've got some trimming to do still. This inner edge here is hanging where we don't want it. Yeah, we don't have a lot of it there, but a little, and same around here. So we've got a little bit more trimming to do. That's okay, we have the technology. So it's just me on the camera again, because I think Steve's a bit scared to come in. He doesn't want to catch it back off me. He was very, very generous in giving it to me, this flue. But yeah, he didn't seem to want it back. I understand. Yeah, we're going to need to get all trimmed off before we can even get this to lay in. Right. So, get this fender off again. Pops out easy, huh? I always fight you going on though. Every time. Alright, tin snips, here we go. Alright, back on with the fender. Now, just with that, now can we see it on camera? I think you can, yeah. Here where this was way up before, now we can actually, just with a little push, get it lined up with the rocker. So it's not laying all the way in, but it is laying some of the way in. Alright, this is it. You're much better off to try and sneak up on these things a little cut at a time and make a few more cuts than to just go all gung-ho and make yourself a bunch more work. So I knew I was a little conservative there, but now that I've got it from where it was, I guess it's probably a 50% improvement as far as how far it's laying in. That just makes it that much easier to see and more accurate to scribe a line again. Now, what did I do with my scribe? I bet you I left it in there. No, I didn't. I'm applying the... here it is, on the ground. Okay. So, now this is that much closer and I've got a better idea of kind of where I need it to be. So, that's there. Just a little bit more there. And that's going to lay in a whole bunch better. This side is, what do we got holding us up here? A little bit at the bottom of this wheelhouse. It's hanging down a little low. Which again, not unusual. You often have to trim these bottom corners. I think they have, personal theory, not a fact, but a theory. They have trouble stamping these wheelhouses. They are so round, they're completely like a half circle, and then they're also a half circle, quarter circle coming back the other way. So it's very round, which makes it very strong. So it wants to bounce back. They stamp them and they bounce back, and getting it just right, I think, my theory is they find it a bit challenging. And they stamp them out, and depending on the metal that you're using on any given day, the quality of the metal is the quality is good, but it's not exactly the same each time. So I think sometimes they stamp them and they're closer, sometimes they stamp them and the metal might have a little higher spring content in it, and they'll spring back more. They won't comply with the dies quite as well. So, because every time I do a wheelhouse, they always seem to fit a little bit different. That's my theory. So yeah, we got to trim a little bit off the bottom here, but that's not our biggest issue at the moment. This edge here is sitting, can't see it on the inside unfortunately you guys, but it's hitting the wheelhouse like hard here, and it's a bit too far out. I mean, I'm going to be able to push that in, but this is sticking out a little bit too far, the inner house, which is holding out the quarter. So that's something that's going to happen when you hammer on it as much as I've been hammering on it to pull it out. To get that arch, the whole fender inner wheelhouse has come out some, and that's holding the fender out. This needs to be in, I'll take a guess here and say probably half an inch, a good half inch needs to to go in. The actual outer part does. We might have to do a couple little relief cuts to let that go in, but that's just part of doing it this way. If we were just going back with little 15-inch wheels, we wouldn't have to worry about that. We're trying to get in the biggest 17s we possibly can, and while that's more than doable, it does add to the time a little bit. You know, you're on and off, tweaking this, tweaking that, but we're going to get there, and it'll be awesome. So, back in a moment. Okay, done a little bit more trimming. I've done a little relief cut here, which as I've pushed that in, that gap's closed up. Same at the back here, a little relief cut there. It's just allowed everything to lay back in a little bit, closer to where it needs to be. Let's try again. Now, it's still sticking out a little bit, but nothing like it was. So this is where, you know, there's a level of patience required, because it's going to have to come on and off a few times, and sometimes you feel like you're just not gaining, and then you'll just put the right little cut in the right place, and you'll gain a whole lot. So this is sitting in nicely here. Hitting down here, just to kind of come back a little bit there. This arch here is lining up nicely, give or take a 16th there, but that just needs to be just pulled back a little bit to line that up. That's very close. It's close enough that we're going to make it. It's sitting in nicely all around here. Again, you can't see it, but it's that inner wheelhouse is laying against the quarter panel, and it's tucking in nicely all the way around there. So that's in pretty good shape. I've got a clamp here. That's not a huge one. No. There, it should stay there. So, it's not wanting to lay down here quite right just yet, although we're just fouling slightly here for a couple of inches, but then we are running into an issue at the bottom of this inner fender. It's hanging just too low, and so that this won't all clamp up. But once we shorten that up a little bit, I'll just have a little, again, it's probably just going to be a relief cut just in here, and I'll try and, as I do that, I'll try and get in closer so you can see what I'm up to. But that's okay. The bottom, once we pop that in there, that bottom's pretty close. It's touching at the back, on the very back of the quarter. Probably out here on camera shot, but at the back it's close. Here we're probably a little over an inch away, but that's really not much in the scheme of things. Once we shorten up this inner wheelhouse, that's going to come to us, but that's sitting nice there. One thing you've got to keep an eye on, it's lining up with the trunk opening well, so that's good. It's just to keep an eye on, whether I'm probably out of camera shot here, just to try and get back in camera shot, and we're there. There you go. look along the length of it and make sure the whole cord is not trying to bow out, which it's not. If this is really still wanting to hang out at the bottom, and the same at the back, if it's all really pushing out, it's probably because it's pushing out here. Now those two relief cuts that I put in the wheelhouse have made a huge difference. It's just allowed it to lay in. Everything kind of relaxed and moved in. So that was a good little step forward. We're a lot closer. Yeah, I'm going to do some work on here, and we're kind of getting to the point now where we can start punching holes where we need to for all the plug welds. And yeah, another couple of, like a couple of on and offs, and I think we'll be pretty close. Pretty close. All right, guys, back in a moment. Okay, so probably, yeah, another 10 times on and off. Just finessing it, just getting it to where I wanted it, where I was happy with it. The whole quarter was trying to kind of do this a little bit, like just droop down at the back, and that was just fighting me in this gap here, fighting under here, just little places, fighting up this top corner. Needed a little bit of relief just to let it kind of roll forward, but it's fitting nice now. I've got all the holes punched in, and got some weld through primer, and did have to put a couple of little sticks in here to allow that to come in, because it was just out too far. I could have forced the bottom in, but it would have made the whole quarter like too pregnant. So it's forcing the quarter out a little bit, so we've gained a little bit of width, and I am going to be pushing the bottoms in just a little bit, not a lot. So let me grab that quarter. And the more you work on these things, they progressively get easier and easier to get on and get clamped into place as the fit improves. It's just hanging up a little bit. I welded that piece in there, and this is the first time I put it back on since having welded that in, so that's just hanging up a little. There you go. So, a few clamps, and it's all coming in. It's fitting nicely up around here. All this is fitting nice. Obviously we need a little clamp here and there. Pull things tight before the last weld. And you see it's sitting out a little bit at the bottom here because it's kind of pushing here, but that's minimal amount of effort to get that to tuck in. Same at the back, we've got just a tiny bit of pressure to push in the back there. Now, so that's ready to start burning in, but I'm running out of day. So one thing I did want to show you guys was, I'm going to try and do this and show you. This whole folding the lip under and cutting the bottom lip off the inner fender, just in case I haven't how well I've explained that, I know exactly what I mean. What I did was just made a little mock-up. Imagine this is a cross section, like say straight through here. If you cut it, that's what it's going to look like. That's kind of how the outer wheelhouse was. with the little lip back. Okay, that's too long, it's normally only 3/4 of an inch, and same on here, that's the outer fender. They kind of fit together like that. Alright, so when you want to roll the lip, that's really tough to make that roll up. Now, you imagine if that lip's cut off, it's kind of going to be straight like this, like that. This is the effect we've got now. We have no lip on the bottom of the outer wheelhouse, and it just tucks down in like that. Then we can run around with the hammer and dolly and just hammer this lip up here, and it will just squeeze. Yep. Best laid plans. And it will squeeze in and go like that. And then we hammer that in nice and tight, and that becomes the same concept as the door skin. You have that little, on the bottom edge or back, all the edges of a door skin, the front and the back and the bottom, all have a little 1/2 inch overlap that gets hammered around. You hammer that up tight and it grabs it. I'll also run some welds around the back up in here, and works out really nice. But in all honesty, I'm out of day. It's time to go home. This is so close now. So yeah, I will come back with kind of like part 2 of this particular video. We'll get it burned in, we'll get the slip rolled. I'll go through that process with you. But yeah, I just wanted to get something on the channel because I've been I haven't put a video up for 2 weeks with being pretty crook. But I'm back at it now. So hope you've enjoyed this little bit so far, and I'll see you on the next video. Take it easy, guys.